What we have from corporate law, because everyone else is here, and declarations of interest. No minutes from last time here to notes. Any issues or concerns? Any public participation? I'm not going to notice of any, so we're going straight on to item 5, recommendations for the committee, because there are none. One important Heath update, which you had. I think everyone apart from Rupert had the benefit of listening to the A&R discussion, so I think we can consider we've taken the report as read, because that's been worked through at quite some length. I had noted that Jim wanted to ask a question on this, but I don't know whether Jim is still here or not. In which case, now's your time on the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is this a different question to one that was asked at A&R?
Remarkably similar, but a lot shorter.
In which case, I'll indulge you because I'm in a good mood.
Thank you. Where would you like me to be? Here? Is here okay?
Fine, wherever you come.
My question is, does Cabinet feel that it has sufficient information to actually make a decision on One Horton Heath? I note that many of you were also present at A&R and listened to the scrutiny that myself and the other members went through with that. Do you feel that you've got sufficient information with this report following that to actually make a decision?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure that will emerge during debate if there is any. What I will say, however, is that all of the Cabinet members, with the exception of Rupert and our new corporate directors, have already been on site and had an extensive on-site tour of One Horton Heath over the course of the last few weeks. So they've been walked the talk and talked the walk at great length on the on-site issues. And what I will say, and we'll roll this out across the council over the course of the coming months, because it really is really helpful for councillors to get a feel and other staff to get a feel of the site properly, which you can only really do if you're on site. Because you see the edges, but you can't see the join up. You can't see how the bits fit together. Even people who know the area pretty well find that going on site helps to understand the development project much better. So that will be an offer that will come to you in due course. Those that we don't get to before the winter gets really bad, we'll wait until we get to the point in the spring when the whole road is tarmacked and we can do something without PPE. At the moment, you have to be dressed up like you're about to walk on the moon to go on the site, which is all very well and very nice and quite attractive, but gets very hot very quickly as well. And there's a limit to the PPE we've got, frankly, but that's spending even more money on it. So we'll see where the discussion goes, but thank you very much. Okay, all right, so we've got the report here. Everyone else had the opportunity to listen to the A&R debate. Many of us live, sleep, eat and breathe this project. So those of us who do that are probably not going to ask any great questions of. But does anyone have any points they want to raise at this point, or indeed, does anyone feel they want to answer Jim's question in the negative, as that clearly would be? Comments or questions or observations? James, do you want to speak?
Well, just I understand the issues that she's raised. I don't actually think they're relevant to the decision before us this evening, which is a planning decision. And there are a lot of subsequent questions with the process of Cllr that I'm sure will be addressed by the team in due course. And those obviously need to be addressed, and they need to have some transparency in the process. But I think in terms of what's before us as a decision this evening, it's pretty straightforward.
Thanks for that. I think the critical point was actually covered in the previous discussion at Steve's committee, which is that we recognise that the scale and scope of this project is now vast. That means a totally fresh look at governance on the basis of the sheer scale of the project, and that's going to see a lot of significant changes in the way we look at this. But it's going to require a beefed up audit regime. It's going to require a beefed up committee arrangements. There will be a housing committee at some point before the HRA actually goes live, so that feels like a shadow HRA process. We haven't yet worked out exactly when that's going to start, but it might even be as early as next year, because we need to get councillors up to speed with this stuff. There are a few of us left who were here when we last had an HRA. I'll hold my hands up as a past member of the housing committee. Is Wayne Irish still here? No, he's gone when he was too, but I think that's probably it actually of what's left. So there's a massive burst of stuff that's going to happen. There'll be constitutional implications to some of this stuff as well, which Joe is working on, just to make sure we've got the scope of this absolutely right and tied down so that everyone's got confidence in the project, not just those who are immersed in it on a day-to-day basis. So good point, James. As we said, this is basically about approving funds for the next 2 housing phases on planning work and development centre. Any more comments on this one? No, in which case, I'm confident we can take this as agreed and move on. And thanks to everyone who came along early to A&R to listen to that discussion, which was, I think, pretty helpful. Moving on to item 7, local valuation foundation list. This is a pretty routine paper. It's a process paper. I don't think it's terribly interesting. I'm sure it's the plans, Andy. Sorry for slurring your profession, but it's I fell asleep actually reading it. But it's good stuff. It's technical stuff. It's what we have to do to make the system work. Did anyone have any questions on the local validation list? Which is really a process rather than this.
Yeah, can I just ask a quick question? I was reading in great depth, I wasn't fall asleep actually when I was reading it. It's about the key thing about utility companies and specifically in relation to water companies, and the text that's in there, I was wondering whether it's new or whether it's just the existing stuff that's been updated about. It has to be an agreement or not agreement, it has to be an assurance, if you like, between the local planning authority and the water utility company that they can connect to the public sewer or water company, water connection, if you like, without an ongoing impact on existing communities. And I thought that was rather interesting because whenever we've raised these issues about capacity issues in certain areas of the borough when we're looking at new development, we've been told that actually that's outside the planning process. But if this is clearly on the list, is it still outside the planning process? Why is it necessarily determined here as being there needs to be some kind of assurance from the developer to the planning authority that a connection can be made to an existing or an alternative solution? But it does say there has to be an assurance that there can be more.
Yeah, falling asleep reading it, and the
Sorry?
thank you for not falling asleep reading it.
Yeah, sorry.
With any plan application, we always expect the developer proposal to be able to demonstrate how they will address the utility requirement, whether it's from private facilities or connected to a main service. Particularly with water, we would consult Southern Water as a matter of course. I think what we're trying to do is front load that arrangement through the local validation checklist, put the onus on the developer to consider that at the very start rather than being a retro thought mechanism partway through the planning process. So to try and get those conversations out early.
Pay attention. Anyone else on this one? Nope. Okay, in which case we'll take that reading into internal audit assurance and resilience, and you'll see that actually no comments from the from audit resources that had this earlier. But it's a pretty straightforward paper, and it is part of this process of those that we're going to be requiring increased capacity audit because of the scale and scope of the council's activities. So this looked pretty straightforward. Any issues anyone wanted to raise? Yeah.
As I was reading, I did just wonder, we made a comment about finding it difficult to recruit to audit in the past. We usually apprentice scheme. We're going for a senior. So is there a way of bringing both of those things together? What's the plan if we don't manage to get the auditor first time? Obviously,
Yeah.
again,
I think
time is one of those things.
yeah, it's been probably about 4 years since we tried to sort this on. We worked testing the market first. I mean, it's probably worth noting that at the moment there's potential that we could explore other ways of getting that resilience through partnership work in buying. So as part of that audit planning,
I think that was mentioned. Actually.
yeah, as part of the audit planning, we'll be looking at ways that we can maybe we don't need to be at planning post, we can buy that on specialism. So it's really just for agreed to get the funding, allow for a bit of time, and then we'll explore ways. And then as part of the annual audit planning, we're looking at that audit committee for approval. We'll have more information on how that actually will be met. But just give us some more resilience.
Given everything that's going on from my point of view, seems very something.
Okay, thanks. Good. And I don't think it was actually mentioned at A&R. I couldn't quite hear every dulcet tone from A&R sat roughly where Gina sat now. But the audit delay question that was raised, one of the public questions, applies to almost every council in the country. And although we didn't record that, I don't think we recorded it at A&R. We are with the mass, not the minority. It's simply a function of the increased complexity of the audit process for major firms and the lack of capacity of the major firms to actually start up audits, which is being addressed nationally, will probably be addressed with an abbreviated audit regime. That's in the future. Okay, everyone happy with these recommendations? Good. Slide at the back of the room slide. Good, thank you. Item 9 then approach to the future management of waste and recycling. And this has also been to P&P. I don't think there are any comments from P&P. I'm not going to notice. This is basically an updated policy, which we've had in draft for a while, kicking around. So there shouldn't be any surprises here. Did anyone have any points they wanted to raise with that?
Just very quickly, obviously, I hope everyone has read the report. Wait or not, I don't know. But obviously, it is about improving some of the sort of the language, if you like, in our policy, also being able to bring it sort of more in line with obviously the legislation that's going to be coming forward, etc. I think it's quite interesting to actually have the inclusion of vapes. Obviously, you know, that's something that clearly is sort of arisen as being an issue over the last sort of 4 to 5 years, whatever. And certainly it's currently, etc., because obviously they have factories and etc. So I have to dispose of them. And obviously about the bin policy, some of the language, etc., about what is allowed, what isn't allowed, etc. I think is really helpful. However, I did find, unfortunately, which is really unfortunate, there's a typo in there, and there is also another issue which I'll take on the board, which says add link, which clearly hasn't got the link, because it says add link, which I read when I read the thing. So I will take that up with Paul when I see him.
He's blushed already.
Sorry?
He's blushed already.
No, I apologise for bringing it up, but there are a couple of little tweaks.
Good, thank you for that. Anyone else? Yeah, Paul?
Can I just, P&P last week did raise, we'd like some clarity about communal bins, the communal areas where we collect upstairs and things like that. So I'll make sure we address that in the wording. But I think it was
Brilliant, thank you for that. That note hadn't got back to me, so thanks for that one. If there's nothing else on there, I'll take that as agreed and move on to item 10, the biodiversity strategy. And if we can just note for the minutes, Nikki, we had an email that went around to all cabinet members from Mr. George Baker, not the Councillor George Baker, who was here just a while ago, but the George Baker, who's the lead volunteer on the Wills and Local Nature Reserve in Hedge End, about the strategy, of which I responded to with a degree of enthusiasm. But this is basically here for us to agree to public consultation. So if anyone's got any detailed comments, they're welcome to make them as part of the public consultation around this table. River.
Can I just say, obviously, I hope that everyone has read the report and actually the biodiversity action plan, which I've been very keen, and I think Paul's there. Look, see Paul on the big screen, look. I have discussed this obviously in the past with Paul, and I know the team, obviously we expanded the team, so obviously there was a lot of work around biodiversity, ecology, mitigation, all that kind of stuff within the borough, also work going on with Heath and everything else. So we did expand that. This was part of that work. It also dovetails really nicely into the climate environment emergency. And obviously we wanted to update the biodiversity action plan because it was quite old and it did need updating, so it does sit quite nicely with the local plan, etc. But there's a lot of really good work in here that's going to obviously we set out where we are, where we want to go, the state of where we are, where we want to go in the future and everything else. And obviously I think the real key thing here is actually being able to monitor that progress over that period of time and understand how we are actually impacting and improving obviously our biodiversity and nature recovery within the borough. Across all designations and those without designations, because as clearly as being outlined in the paper and also the biodiversity action plan, you know, nature is at a very critical point, and our species are either in serious decline or indeed are disappearing. And I certainly know of species that I remember when I was a child that either I hardly see now at all or don't see at all. So it is a legacy thing. We really do need to do this stuff now. But it also can dovetail and sit in against what our aspirations are with the local plan as well. So it's a really, really good piece of work. And I do thank Paul very much and his team for working so hard on this and delivering such a good piece of work.
Thank you, Rupert. I'm sure we'll agree with that. Paul is here. If there are any detailed technical questions, I imagine there are not, because they've been raised before now. We'll see. And 3 second rule means there aren't. So confident we're content to agree this for consultation. So thank you everybody for that. I've got no notice of business. We'll close this meeting. We'll commence the next one in 2 minutes' time. Thank you very much.